Hey everyone, before we get into this week's episode, I have a little announcement. I recently launched the Awesome Finds newsletter. So each week, I'm going to share a few spotlights on creative people and projects, meaningful stories, and new ideas, all with the goal of sparking our imaginations. So sharing's great, but for me, this is more than just sharing. This is about spreading new ideas and happiness. Okay, that may sound a tiny bit cheesy, but it's true because I believe when we're sharing creativity and ideas, that can spread joy and happiness around. At least that's how I see it. I'm also hoping this helps us cut through all the noise that's all over our social feeds lately and makes this kind of discovery a little bit easier. So here's the simple truth of why I'm doing this. I just want to share the great stuff in the world that energizes me to energize you. So if you want to sign up or want more info about it, go to awesomefinds.info. That's awesomefinds.info. awesomefinds.info. And don't worry, I promise it's a short email and a very quick read. It's supposed to be fun and interesting. I really hope you guys like it. Okay, now to the show. Hey everyone, it's Christopher Swan and welcome to this week's episode of Living Your Journey. Each week I have this amazing opportunity to chat with people that love what they do in life. They understand their passions and their direction. Maybe it's a career path or it's the social impact that they're making. It's kind of like they're following their North Star, but they also know their story may change and they understand that they're on a journey every day. This week, Joe Pulizzi joins me on the show. For anyone working in marketing and communications, you probably know about Joe. He's become this ultimate champion for content marketing. Our conversation's about growth, success, and backstories of Joe's world. It's not just for listeners interested in marketing. We talk about starting Content Marketing Institute, finding new ideas, staying energized, advice, and even why he founded the Orange Effect Foundation to help children with speech disorders. Joe created a wildly successful organization, the Content Marketing Institute, and the related Content Marketing World, the largest content marketing conference in the world, as well as hosts 2 podcasts, authored multiple books, and regularly speaks to global audiences. Joe's obviously successful, but here's the thing. He's the nicest guy to talk to and shares from the heart. No matter your career or journey, Joe's a great guy to connect with. Everyone, meet Joe. Joe, it is so great to have you on the show today. Thanks for being here.
Christopher, thanks for having me. I truly appreciate it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's great. Like I just mentioned to you earlier, I met you a few years ago. So now it's like this full circle moment for me. So fun. So listen, I've been thinking about what I was going to ask you about the things that we're going to talk about. And you've had this wild career. I mean, you've just done so many great things and you've been in the space for so long. And I can't help but think that this sounds really horrible, but you seem to be this like poster child for your industry of content marketing. Like when I think of that word,
I don't know if that's good or bad, but yes, you're probably, I mean, that's part of the promotion aspect of it. I mean, you'll see me out and about with my orange suit or orange shirt and just trying to make whatever, if anybody wants to talk about content marketing, I'm there. I love it. I've had a passion for it. And I'm just so happy it worked out. I've been in this industry, believe it or not, for 17 years now. And I had a full head of hair when I started. So here we are.
Well, that's a perfect segue because here's the big question I really started to think about with content marketing is the why. Like, why do you do what you do? Why content marketing? What's the passion behind that versus another kind of marketing or anything else?
It's not mind-blowing, actually, Christopher. It's the fact that I started in media in 2000, and I was around a lot of companies that advertised. And I just saw all these ads and all this interruption. And I just looked at them like, there's got to be a better way. There's absolutely got to be a better way to communicate with an audience in order to attract and retain customers. And I was lucky enough to sort of fall into this department in a large business-to-business media company called Penn Media. And I started working in their custom media department, which is another phrase for content marketing. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. Like, this is how, if you're a company, this is how you should communicate. You should just deliver valuable, relevant, compelling content to that person. And as you build that relationship over time, they start to know, like, and trust you. And as you do that, they'll buy more from you in the future. It sounds perfect, right? You're just delivering value. You're not pitching them all the time. And back in 2000, 2001, it was basically that the discipline of content marketing was shoved into corners of enterprises. And we worked with large business-to-business companies like Microsoft and Parker Hannifin. So as you went to visit the publications division with any of these companies, like, you would have to walk through their company, like go downstairs past the boiler, and then you'd find these people that worked on like a corporate publication. That was, content marketing in its day. And now today, the company's messaging and their communications and their valuable content is central to anything that they do. So it's sort of a miracle to see that it's gone this far. Even in 2009, I didn't think that the business that we created at the time was going to make it, because I just didn't think enough companies were going to pick up on this is actually a thing, and you have to spend money on it, and it really is going to prove to be valuable over time. And lucky enough, about 2010, 2011, it really started to take off, and now, you and I are here talking about content marketing like it's been around forever. And it's been around for hundreds of years. And I love talking about the really old case studies, as you know, but here we are today, and it's actually a discipline. And it's sort of neat to see that there's a whole area of people that call themselves content marketers or content marketing managers or directors or head of content or chief content officer. And I'm like, we were able to do something. We're able, if big enterprises are just able to communicate a little bit better with their audience and not disrupt so much and just provide value for their customers, maybe we're not healing anybody out there. We're not getting homes for the homeless. We're not there's no miracles taking place here, but I feel a little better communication helps the world, if you will.
It is interesting to the point that you just said that it's been around for hundreds of years, but now we have these people that have these titles and they're leading these things. And it's funny because I forget about that. I forget that content marketing hasn't just always been around in the way that we call it, because some of my background is communications and marketing as well. And so I remember learning about it and really diving in, going to Content Marketing World, and I had my little ahas of like, oh, so this is what it all is. And today it is funny to go, gosh, this didn't really exist in the way it is, 15, 20 years ago. So it really has been like almost a movement, if you will, like, because it's become this, not just a discipline, but it's like a way of life now. It's interesting.
It had to be a movement because the first Content Marketing World we had in 2011, we were hoping to get 100, 150 people to come to Cleveland, and 660 showed up, and I couldn't believe it. And the people that were there are the ones that felt completely misunderstood in their organization, that actually believed in communicating a different way. And they were there to, yes, they were there to learn, but I think they were there to look around and say, oh my gosh, there's like people that these are my people.
Yeah, we're
all struggling together, and we had like a kumbaya moment where we're all, yes, I know nobody loves us, but someday it'll be better. And I think maybe we're still not advertising. There's still plenty of money in media, don't get me wrong. So we're still trying to get some respect in a lot of companies, but we have come a long way.
When I think about even your past, starting Content Marketing Institute, and I know that you have started some other businesses and just had some really interesting ventures. You speak, you have authored a few books. So this is a question I ask a lot of people that have a variety of talents or show them in a different way. How do you think of yourself professionally? Are you a marketer? Are you an entrepreneur? Are you a evangelist of some sort? Like, where do you kind of see your career, or how do you title it?
That is a good question. I guess first I would say father. So I'm a husband and father first.
Sure.
That's why we do what we do. And then I've always, it's funny, Christopher, like my brother is a really talented musician. He's been on American Idol. He's traveled with some really famous people. He's truly gifted at playing the guitar. And as I was growing up, I never felt that I was really good at anything. I was good at a lot of different things, but not really good at anything. So I would always say, I'm sort of, it's like my brother he's so much talent in guitar, and I'm going to take, like, I have that much talent, but it's spread across a lot of different things. And so that's how I sort of rationalized it to myself. So I would say, yes, I mean, absolutely entrepreneurship. I grew up around my mother and father's business. They were in the restaurant business. I grew up around my uncle and my grandfather who were in the funeral home business. I worked in those businesses. So, and of course, that passed on that sort of entrepreneurial bug to me. I always wanted to be a writer. I had a passion for telling stories. And I wanted to refine that skill. And I was able to do that probably starting in 2007 when I started the blog. I've been in, and went back in, what year was it? 1996 in radio. I used to do radio spots at county fairs, and I loved being on the radio. And I always wanted to sing and dance and perform, and I was in musicals and stuff like that, but I was not quite that good at it, but I liked being in front of people. So, of course, I got in the event business. So I just I love communicate. I guess I love communicating with people. So everything that I've done, even the entrepreneurial businesses that we've started, it's always been about communication. My major, even when I went to Bowling Green State University in Bowling Green, Ohio for my undergrad, and I got my master's at Penn State. Both of those degrees were communication degrees. The only reason I became a communication major is I went to the person in HR, whatever that, the admissions or whatever at Bowling Green, and I didn't have a major, and I was in my junior year now, and I had no major. I was undecided, and I went over to her and I said, "Look, I want to graduate on time. And I still don't know what to do. What major can I choose that I'll actually graduate on time?" She said, "Well, there's none. You're not going to graduate on time because you're too late. But if you take 2 summer classes, you could be a communications major." And I said, "That's it. I'm a communications major. Done." And that's how I got it. And it's just funny. I mean, I always loved that. I always knew I did, but it's sort of, I got backed into the major, and I had this long string of communications jobs and roles and opportunities from that moment on. So I have no idea how I would describe myself, but I just, anything that I love, anything that I'm passionate about, and I guess it all revolves around communicating with people. So now if you go back and look at everything I've done, from the books and the podcasts and starting the businesses, it all has to do with some entity communicating to another entity to create a valuable relationship. And that's Joe. That's me. That's all I got.
I don't think that story is all that different than even some others, where sometimes we just have this opportunity, like whereas you maybe say you got backed into this major, but it's almost turns into an opportunity when we just kind of excel with it and find the things we like. You mentioned also though that you had all these things that you really enjoy, these talents, the singing, the dancing, this, I would almost characterize those as like the very creative, the arts. Did you realize in the moment, that, hey, you could create this event company, you could do these different things, like with Content Marketing World and be in front of people? Did you realize in the moment that, hey, and I get to do these things that I love, or it was just this natural progression, like, oh, I have this talent, I can do this, and it just helps me?
That's a great way to put it. I think that I always thought there was an opportunity, like with the event and with starting the Content Marketing Institute. I'm like, wow, there's an opportunity there. But I think that the only reason I saw that is because it's something that I would enjoy doing in the first place. Like there's lots of other opportunities out there that, anything like really highly technical, I probably ignored, even though maybe I saw the opportunity and I'm like, I don't want to do that. That's no fun. So I just skipped over that. And then when I got to, hey, we could do an event and we could do a magazine and, we could create this online platform that's all about education and creativity and content. Those are the things that I was sort of drawn to. But everything from the business side, from when I started the business in 2007, it was always like I can fit my passion into a lot of different things, but I'd really like to be successful at it as well. So that's where, the startups and just kind of going and focusing and then finding CMI, it was the right fit. So my passion was able to say, that's it. That's an opportunity because you can make money a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
You might as well make money doing something you really love and you're passionate about and you're good at. Because I'm not good at a lot of things. So who wants to go make money at things that they're just not good at or they don't like? And life's too short for that.
Absolutely. So I believe you started at Content Marketing Institute in 2007. I guess that's when the blog started. And we hear this a lot from a lot of startups and organizations. I think the majority of the stories are, it wasn't so easy in the beginning, or you had to be patient. Sometimes there's the aha and something happens viral overnight. But I'm curious with, because you guys have been successful for so many years now, a little bit of what's the story in the beginning? Like, was there some rough spots? I think it's like let's pull back the cover a little bit and say,
Pull back the kimono a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Tell the story. Yeah. If you want to hear the story, no, it was probably about 2005. I had this idea. I was working at Pent Media. So I was running their custom media department at the time, and I had this bug to start a business. And the business idea was custompublishers.com. So the industry was not called content marketing. It was custom publishing or custom media. And I'm like, it was so, I saw the need out there. It was so hard for agencies and publishers to find leads to do custom content projects, blog posts, newsletters, custom magazines, whatever. And I said, well, wouldn't it be great if we started this online thing like the eHarmony for custom publishing? That's it. So that was the tagline ultimately, was eHarmony for content marketing. But it started out as custompublishers.com. And as I finally made the decision, with my wife, we set the deadline and said, Joe, you've been talking about this so long, make the decision. And then we made the decision that by the end of March 2007, I would go start this thing. Well, by the time I started, I'm like, well, custom publishing is old world. That's not going to work. And I'd been using the term content marketing for a long time, but nobody knew what that was. Nobody cared. I mean, I would get, when I said content marketing, they'd be looking at me like, what is that? Is that redundant? That doesn't make any sense to me. So I practiced it enough on enough CMOs and enough marketers as I went in and sold while I was working at Pent. And I said, well, maybe content marketing is it. Let's take a shot with content marketing. So instead of going forward with this custom publishing thing, I said content marketing and started the eHarmony for content marketing in 2007. And that was the business, but it wasn't going to be ready for a while. I had sinking money into online and this algorithm and all this stuff. What am I going to do? So basically I started the blog, and about 3-4 times a week I started blogging, and nobody was blogging about this, at least calling it content marketing. Even the custom publishers out there, they weren't really giving away their content for free. They were doing what most consultants do, is they say, oh, I don't want to give anything away for free. And they were just marketing like everybody else markets. So I started to do this blog and started to build this audience. And even up to, let's say, 2009, the product actually started to work. We matched up maybe 1,000 different products, or 1,000 different, there were a couple multi-million deals that we matched up, $1 million deals. I'm like, this thing, we didn't get that money, mind you. Somebody else got that money, but we matched it up. And then the moment that everything hit was in September of 2009. We were sort of hurting for money, hurting for revenues, because I wasn't getting as many agencies to purchase. It was an annual fee to be in the system. And hindsight is 2020. I would never target agencies again, because agencies are the cheapest people on the planet. And I have a lot of agency friends, but they don't spend money on marketing. But here, that's who we were targeting for that. And in September 2009, our best case study, the agency that got one of these multi-million-dollar deals didn't re-up on the platform. So to this annual deal. And so I've got the number of the CEO. I knew her really well, and I called her up and I said, "Hey, you haven't re-upped. Your credit card's not working here. I just want to call, get you re-upped in the system. It's $5,000 a year." And she said, "Well, I think that we can get better return on investment doing something else." And mind you, we just delivered her a multi-million-dollar project. And I said, "What?" It's like, if you can get better ROI from something else, tell me and I'll go do it, because I can't do any better than what we just did for you over the last year. She says, no, I'm out. I'm out. So either I'm the worst salesperson in the world or we have a problem. There is a business model problem going on with our system. So I hung up the phone. I remember this really clearly. I go into the backyard and I'm walking around feeling incredibly sorry for myself. And I'm like, oh my God, I left this 6-figure job, wonderful benefits 2 years ago, and started this thing. And we are now losing money. And I've got 2 small kids and I'm the stupidest person on the face of the earth. Like, it really did feel that way. And I felt that way for a couple weeks. I'm like, so I started to actually think about, well, what job I'm going to go have to find a job.
Yeah. Because
this is not working. And then after feeling sorry for myself, got it all together. And I said, what are we doing? Like, what's the problem? And what I realized is I was going through some emails that some of my readers were sending and some of my customers were sending. And what I realized is that we started to actually, through the blog, create a pretty nice community. And we started to build an audience. And we had about, let's say, that's like 7,500 or 10,000 people on our email list. And we were starting to grow that. So things were moving. But what I realized is that only about 0.5% of our audience at any one time could use our service. Mm-hmm. Like, not everybody is in the market for, oh yeah, now I'm ready to outsource my content to somebody. So we were creating this audience and nobody could use the product. And then we were targeting an audience for money, agencies that had no money or wouldn't spend any money. I'm like, this is the most brilliant business model in the world. Like, what was I thinking? This has got to be the worst ever. So then I go back and I said, well, what if we just focused on the audience and the audience's needs and could we monetize those? And I'm like, oh my God, it hit me as I came from media. I came from publishing. Let's just position ourselves as a media company. We'll build the audience. And once we build an audience that knows, likes, and trusts us, we'll start to launch products and services around that. And I said, we could do the 3 legs of the stool model, and that's what I grew up in publishing. It's like you create the number 1 online destination, you create the number 1 print destination, and you create the leading event in the world. And that's how I did it. That's how we did it at Penton Media. And so I remember I had a little, I wish I still had it. It was like a little napkin, and I scratched this out and I said, we will create the leading event, the leading magazine, and the leading online platform. And March of 2010, contentmarketinginstitute.com was formally launched as the online platform. In January of 2011, Chief Content Officer Magazine, which went to 20,000 marketers, was launched. And in September of 2011, as we talked about, that was the first year for Content Marketing World. And when I was on stage at Content Marketing World and I came out, because I remember right before I went out on stage, my wife was in the back and she's crying, because we both looked out and we're like, oh my God, there's 600 people here from 25 countries. And they actually paid to come to this event. And I remember going out on stage, Christopher, and that was the first time that I felt that I wouldn't have to go get a job. Like, I really felt that maybe this thing will actually work. And that's the story. And now here we are in 2017, and this year we're expecting more than 4,000 people from over 70 countries, and it's the largest event in the world on content marketing, and we've got over 200,000 subscribers to Content Marketing Institute, and rock and roll, man.
That's incredible. That's an incredible. I remember I've heard a little bit of the story before, but not all of that. And it just, when I was putting the dates together as well, from that moment in September of 2009, when you are having your couple weeks of what the heck is happening, and despair, until that first conference, with those hundreds of people. I mean, that's even a couple of years of really pushing through. Because I think here's what's wonderful about the story is it sounds like you had your aha moment, you did it, you focused, and you made this amazing magic. But the truth is, there was a time in between all of that where there's a lot of work and probably a lot of elbow grease in there as well.
Oh, well, absolutely. And a lot of really good people. I mean, I remember we hired in May of 2010, hired Michelle Lynn to work, and she's still our VP of content. And then Joseph Kalinowski, who's our creative director. And what's amazing about the whole thing happening is we have 26 wonderful people working with CMI, and nobody has left. Like, we've had to get rid of some people, but not one person we've ever worked with has left the organization. And that's, I think that my wife and myself and the whole leadership team have just created this amazing culture. And yeah, I mean, it's what the advantage that I think we had against, because by the way, you had B2B Magazine, you had Advertising Age, you had Adweek. They all knew this was happening. Nobody did anything. Mm-hmm. You had an association called the Custom Publishing Council, which is now the Content Council. They could have done this. There's no reason why. I mean, it wasn't like, oh my God, Joe saw this thing and he was the only one. We were maybe the one that moved, that we made the decision that it was important enough to put some resources behind it and had some really crazy people that said, yeah, that sounds fun. Let's do that. Content marketing world. Yeah, that sounds great. Let's do that. Let's make sure that everything, all the food and all the linens and everything are orange. And we'll just freak everybody out as they walk in. It's just having fun with those types of things. At big companies, it's very hard for them to do that. And we were able to maneuver and take advantage of the opportunity.
You know what I think is interesting is just you mentioned this orange thing too, and I'm not going to go into the orange thing. I do have a question about it yet, but I'll wait. But I think that you just tapped into something that I've really noticed was with kind of the stuff that you guys do. So you do have a lot of fun, and it is like the orange and the kind of like, where am I? Like, what's happening? This is not like a normal conference. So if you go to a conference, any kind of corporate conference in the world, they are themed kind of the same way. There's a lot of, just different sessions, breakouts, whatever the case is, mixed up. There's always, an opening and a close. Or in the middle, they usually slap in some sort of event that has some sort of like name, band, or something. So not that they're bad. I've seen some amazing artists that way. I'm like, oh, Sheryl Crow's playing today. Super. So, that's all good stuff. But what I think that you guys doing a little differently, and I'd love to hear a little bit about like the how that came up or why you guys take entertainment and you take the fun, but you I think integrate it very differently. Like some of your speakers, you've had to like what John Cleese and Mark Hamill, and it just so you pull from entertainment. You pull from these great spaces and you make it relatable though. So I'd love to know, like, how do you mix up like even that idea, or like, was that, I have so many questions, but I think the first question is really, how do you guys do it? And was it purposeful to do it a little differently?
Well, the first thing is I had the great opportunity of doing a lot of speaking from starting, let's say 2009 for like the 2 years leading up to the first Content Marketing World. And I went to a lot of events beforehand. And as you say, 99% of events are boring. They're terrible. Like, no, it's like pulling teeth. Like, how did they even get people here type of events? I have no idea. And what you realize, and maybe back to what we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, was this is all entertainment. The first and foremost, everything we're doing is entertainment. Sure, we want to educate people, but if they're not having fun, they're not going to learn. And that's like the number one rule, and everybody on the team knows this, that if people that come to Content Marketing World are not first having fun, they're not going to be open to learning something different. Mm-hmm. So we have to break through that in an entertaining way. Now, that said, I'll give you a really good example. I love Seth Godin. I would love to have Seth Godin at Content Marketing World. Seth Godin will never speak at Content Marketing World if I'm doing the agenda. You know why? Because every marketing event has Seth Godin speak. You can't do that. That's why we're like, okay, well, where's there a story or a storyteller or somebody in entertainment that is struggling with how to tell a story, with how to build an audience? That's why, having Kevin Spacey in 2013 was unbelievable. It's still one of the greatest keynote speeches I've ever seen. He knows how to deliver a speech better than almost anybody I've ever seen. But people look at that and say, well, why Kevin Spacey? And then he's out there saying, you have to focus on the audience's needs. And here's the 3 parts of telling a story and whatever. And they leave that saying, oh my God, I can take everything that he just said and leverage that in my business. But the first 10 minutes of it, he was telling jokes. He was doing imitations. as you know, he's one of the greatest imitators out there, voice imitator, and those types of things. And so we want to make it a little different. When they come down the escalator and they see a whole tray of orange food, like you have Reese's peanut butter cups, and you've got carrots, and you've got orange hummus, and you've got, it's weird, orange donuts, and they're looking at it like, what is this? You're like, they're trying to have fun. They're trying to. It's a different atmosphere for them. So anything that we can do when they get off of the plane and they have some feeling that this is different. And we have thought about that all along the way. And we have, by the way, like we absolutely do. When they get off the plane and they get into the airport, there's a sign there. And then they go to the taxi cabs that have the signage for Content Marketing World there. And then they get to the hotel, and the hotel all have content marketing buttons. And there's gobos in each of the hotels. And they sense that and they feel that. And then they get on site and there's orange arrows everywhere. And they're like, wow, yeah, this is cool. I just follow the orange and I'm going to get to something good. Something good is going to happen. Like, why would anybody get up at 7:00 in the morning to go to opening keynote and breakfast and do all these things when they're coming from, Australia or Japan or the West Coast? And why would they come to Cleveland to do that? I mean, it was really difficult to get people to come to Cleveland. Where, obviously Content Marketing Institute is based in Cleveland, Ohio, so we wanted to support the hometown. It was very tough. Not as tough as it used to be, but very tough to persuade people to come to Cleveland. So it comes down to everything we do, even if you're a blogger, a podcaster in an engineering community or something very serious, it's still entertainment in some way, and you open up their mind there where you can really inspire them about something that's truly important in the world.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's absolutely true. And especially with the orange, I mean, I've experienced it myself, and
yeah, got the orange suit, the orange shoes to prove it. So
you know what went into my head when the first time I kind of realized what was happening? I was like, this is like an episode out of The Simpsons. I was like, wait, really? Like, where am I? But it was such a positive thing because it did help me take notice. And I mean, you've been doing it for years, so it's not all that
it's like different the circus. Now. It's like the circus. We're going to the circus, and then you come away with one or two things, and you're like, wow, I didn't expect that. That was pretty cool. So,
well, because you guys have been doing it for so long, and I know you have a head of creative, and there's content and these different folks, but even just for yourself, because you've been doing, you've been on this mission for a while. You've, like we've said earlier, you authored a few books. You've done all this great work in this space. What about today? Like, do you find yourself at all with any kind of like creative blocks? Like, how do those appear? Like, where do I go next? Because here's what I'm curious about. For someone who's so successful in what you're doing, or really kind of aligned with what you want to do, what do you do when those creative blocks kind of appear?
So yeah, I mean, just to give you an idea, and I probably don't create as much written content as I used to on a weekly basis, but probably more content overall. So, I mean, I've as you said, I've got 2 podcasts a week that I work on.
Yep.
I work on an e-newsletter post. I usually work on a regular article, either for online or for the magazine. And right now, Robert Rose, our chief strategy advisor, and I are working on another book that's due out in September called Marketing Profit. So that's going on right now. That'll be my 5th book. But there are some days I get up and I just don't have it. So to keep the ideas fresh and I force myself, I don't want to say force like it's a bad thing, but I read at least 2 books every month, and one of them is a fiction book. And one of them is usually a business book. And I've tried to load up more on the fiction books. And for whatever reason, Christopher, that helps me to just come up with fresh ideas on the way that David Baldacci, is doing something. I love some of those, or I'll get a Stephen King book, or whatever the case is. I've been really this is not the fiction book stuff, but I'm like a fanboy of everything Hamilton. So I listened to that soundtrack 1,000 times. I mean, so I'm engaging in content, not industry related content as
Sure.
much as I possibly can to then make those stories and relatable to something in content marketing. So if you go back through my last 5 or 6 posts on contentmarketinginstitute.com, you'll see, oh, Alexander Hamilton did this, or Tim Ferriss says in Tools of Titans this, or I read this and this character in this book, just to make it relatable and to keep it always fresh. Because if you're not engaging in things like that, you're going to lose it. That's exactly why I love going to events. I mean, I go and speak at events, but the more I can talk to other people and have different experiences, that affects my creativity level. So when I'm really low and I've got nothing to say, and I'm like, I've got to get this podcast done, or I've got to get this article done, and I don't know what to talk about, I can guarantee you I haven't been on the road speaking and I haven't been reading. So, I sort of have to just get myself. So I have a goals. It's not a workbook. It's a little notepad that I look in every day and see what my goals are. And one of my goals is to read 2 books every month, and I make a list of them. So I have my list from last year that I go through, and I like to look at that, and that really helps me to keep it fresh. And my hope is someday I can I actually want to write a fiction book someday. I think it's so much more challenging than doing nonfiction.
I agree.
And I'd love to challenge myself that way and probably write a really bad fiction book, but I want to at least give it a shot and do that. And now as things are changing for me personally, and we haven't talked about it yet, but Content Marketing Institute was sold to UBM in June of last year. That was one of my goals, was to sell the company at some point. And now a lot of my time has changed. I have more time with the kids. I'm doing different things, and it's given me more time, I think, to be creative. But it's also it's a different work day for me. So I'm in the process of figuring out what that work day is, and how I can go to bed at night and say, wow, that was just a fantastic day. I worked on 3 different projects, or worked on this project, and I feel like I'm doing something that's adding to other people's lives in some way.
What does that look like for you now? You're start working on these different projects, and what your workday looks like. But even thinking a little bit in the future, now that CMI has been sold, and obviously you're still part of it, and you're still doing a lot of these efforts. But like, now that you've sold it, what's kind of, I don't want to say the next for you, like, oh, where will you transition? But what's keeping you interested? Is it the more speaking, more connecting, or is it just maybe less time, working so much more time with the kids?
So this is what you just asked me is something that I'm obsessing about right now. Just so you know, this is where I'm at. I had this huge goal of selling the company that I've had, and I've read as a goal of mine for 9 years. Every day for 9 years, just about, I've looked at this goal. And then when you hit that goal, like a lot of things change. And I remember going up to that point, it was always about, I only have a few years left before my 2 boys are 13 and 15. And when they turn 18 and go off to college, I'm not going to get the opportunity to be with them as much. So right now, that's number one, taking my son to school every day, being home at the end of their school day and talk to them, being around for dinner. Because let's say in the last few years, 50 to 60% of my time, I'm gone, which is not as bad as a lot of people. A lot of people are gone 90% of the time. So I was thankful to be home half the time, but still half the time I'm gone. I'm missing a lot of dinners. I'm missing some weekends. I was doing international trips all the time. I'm gone for weeks at a time. It's an issue. So my number one thing is, okay, you've got 4 years left to be the most amazing father you can be. So you better focus on that as number one. So that's the one thing I'm focused on. The second thing is, and I've been reading, as I just mentioned, I've been obsessing about this Tim Ferriss book, Tools of Titans. I don't know. Have you read it?
I haven't read that one yet. I do know it though.
So basically he takes all of his, thousands of interviews he's had over the past few years, and he takes their best advice and puts them into the book. And it's really good. It's really inspiring. But there's one portion of it that I can't remember the general. I'll have to remember who it was, but that he was interviewing and said, look, when you are at the beginning of your career, you say yes to a lot of things because you don't know which one of those opportunities is a lottery ticket. So you say yes to everything and you take as many things, have as many experiences as you can. And out of that, good things should happen. But when you see a certain level of success, then you get to the point where it's either a hell yes or a no. Like either you are just like, oh, that is the biggest opportunity I've ever seen. I'm going to go all in on that. Or it's no. So what happens is that I am learning how to say no a lot more. So, I mean, obviously you and I are talking on this podcast. I'm thankful for that opportunity, but 90% of the podcast now I'm turning down just because it's got to be that one or the other. Like we've got to be really excited. That's a really good opportunity. That'd be really fun to talk to Christopher, or no, because when those big opportunities come and you're saying yes to everything, you're not going to have the time. You're not going to have the time or the energy to really put your heart and soul into that thing. So those are the two things, Christopher, that I'm just so focused on. Is right now I want to be there for my kids and really keep to that promise. Because I remember when I left Penn Media in 2007, I remember talking to my boss, and I said, because I was traveling a lot at the time, and I was doing the 7 o'clock to 6 o'clock schedule every day, and I'm like, I want to be around for my kids. And I'm here. And then I worked and became an entrepreneur and realized, oh my gosh, I'm busier than I ever was at the other company. This is not working right. And now I've got the opportunity where there's no excuses. I literally have none. I can do whatever I want to do. And that's the one thing. And then the other thing is there's going to be some amazing opportunities that come my way. And I've got to make sure that I'm ready for them. So I got to say no to a lot of things in the meantime.
I think that's really smart. Speaking of opportunities, I know that I looked into this a little bit too, and we chatted about it earlier, but tell me about you founded the Orange Effect Foundation as well, because that's even creating a new opportunity. And I think you started this a couple of years ago, and I was actually really excited about the work that you're doing here. So maybe you could tell me a little bit about that and the why you started it.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, super passionate about that. My wife is, and I co-founded it. She's executive director of the Orange Effect Foundation. And in 2007, we started a very simple golf outing with the Easter Seals to raise money for children with, mostly on the autism spectrum, but doesn't have to be, that need speech therapy and play therapy support. And the reason why is my oldest son, Joshua, was diagnosed on the autism spectrum. He's high functioning. He's doing fantastic. But basically his short story was he's 2 years old. He has no vocabulary at all. And it was at that time where he got diagnosed, and we always knew that there was something, but didn't know what it was, like most parents. And we're like, okay, what do we do? And I remember we went to the clinic at the time, and they said, I'm sorry, this is the kind of life your son's going to have, and this is the kind of education, and don't expect too much. And we left that meeting like, what? Like this is, and I've never seen my wife so determined after that meeting. She went from that meeting and put together a rigorous speech and play therapy program. She was a social worker. So she put this together herself. She said, my son is going to be whatever he wants to be, but we've got to make sure that, we give him the opportunity to do that, and put that together. He was held 1 year back from school. Now he's in regular high school. He's doing fantastic. That made all the speech and player therapy that he had made all the difference. I can absolutely, if he wouldn't have had that, I have no idea where Joshua would be right now. So in 2007, Josh was doing so well, and we're like, well, there's all these parents out there, all these families out there that aren't able to afford the speech and play therapy and do the things that we were able to do. And as we were learning more from the Easter Seals and being around that, we were like, oh my gosh, there are people that actually turn down that say, oh yeah, your son or your daughter needs this therapy, but they can't afford it. They can't get it on insurance. There's no government grants to do it. And they don't do it. And I'm like, this is the thing that just is upsetting. Like, you got to be kidding me. They just do nothing. They do nothing because they don't have the funds to do it. I totally understand why, but it's a tragedy. So that's why we started the golf outing in 2007 specifically to do that. And it just kept building over and over again. We started the 501c3, officially did Orange Effect Foundation. We've got a board and everything. It's like we've been able to affect hundreds of kids from all over the United States that didn't have the technology they needed to facilitate their therapy, or they didn't have the money to support the speech therapy. So that's all we do. We are a fundraising organization. We get applications in from people that need this therapy, and we go ahead and make sure, hey, you need this therapy. The board reviews all this. We see the need, and we go ahead and fund that. And it is leaving those board meetings, Christopher, are inspiring because you see the need and you're like, yes, that child who's 4 years old that doesn't talk yet is going to get the speech therapy that they need so that they can be whoever they want to be. So that's what Orange Effect does, the orangeeffect.org. So basically we fundraise, and then if anyone needs services, if they need the money, they don't have the money for whatever. I mean, we purchased some piece of technology for this one lovely woman that was like $13,000 that she really needed it in order to communicate. And we were able to buy that for her family. And of course, you get back that the people are crying and the thank you notes. And it just makes it's not it's just a little thing. I mean, Autism Speaks does great work. They do amazing research. There's all kinds of organizations doing, but this is just a little sliver that people have forgotten. Mm-hmm. Like this, you could do all the research. And of course, we want to figure out what's going on with autism. But at the meantime, there's all these kids that need therapy. Like, so what are we going to do there? So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, that's so great. I love that you're doing that. And I mentioned this earlier too. My nephew is kind of in the same circumstance, and my sister's been focused on his therapy, his speech therapy, since he was so little. And you can see the difference. Like I can see this firsthand. So I love that you guys are so involved in that and offering that little sliver of assistance.
That's the one thing. I mean, I've read enough books from Tony Robbins and all these big gurus out there that tell you the one thing that it's over and over again. Warren Buffett's another one. They always say, you have to have that charitable component, like to be a human being. You can be as successful as you want to be, but it's got to be for something greater than yourself. So that's just a little thing, and so we're hoping to do more. The more families we can affect, the better.
Yeah, that's great. Well, you mentioned some of those folks some of the books you've read and different things. Here's what I'm kind of curious about too, just because like I started this by saying you're this, like kind of this spotlight on you about this industry, and I think a lot of people look up to you for maybe inspiration or advice. Curious, who kind of keeps you energized especially as you're making this transition into, maybe another evolution in your career, or, as you move forward, who keeps you energized or inspired?
I would like to think that it was just, oh my God, I love let's say Warren Buffett or Seth Godin or whatever. And I do, by the way, I read Seth's blog. I read when Warren Buffett puts out his annual report to Berkshire Hathaway. I read it. I love that stuff. I read Tony Robbins' Money book, which was, simply fantastic. I've read, Phil Knight's Shoe Dog is just an unbelievable book that I think anybody should who's struggling in a business should absolutely read. But I got to tell you, I'll be honest, it's my friends. It's my friends and family that sort of keep me grounded.
I'm so glad you said that.
It is. I've mentioned to my friends about just talk about inspiration and motivation. I've mentioned to my friends about fiction. Every time I see them, they don't care about all the other stuff that they're doing and some of the awards and some of that. They're like, "Hey Joe, where's that fiction book? Like, I'm ready to read it. What are you doing? Are you lazy? Like, what's going on? Like, where?" So and just going out with them, it's just. You could just be yourself. You don't have to worry about it. I don't have to be the Joe that's on Twitter or Facebook that it's like, oh, here's all the great things that's happening, and here's me in an orange shirt. Here's all that stuff that's not all the real me. The real me is probably me coaching my son's basketball team or hanging out with my friends on New Year's Eve, which we go out every year and do those types of things. So that's being able to have a close group of people that literally would do anything for you. Those are the ones that inspire me, but also keep my feet on the ground. I never can get too cocky because as soon as I do, they will take some kind. My creative director will take some kind of picture of my face and distort me in a Photoshop image, and say, put your feet back on the ground there, JoJo. You're not that important.
That's awesome. Actually, I think it's really smart advice for anybody too. Like, just we can find inspiration in wonderful things like in all these leaders and people that we see online as well. But also, like, the folks around us can energize us in new ways. Just like you mentioned, like the fiction books, right? We can find inspiration anywhere. Energized. I love that they just you're creative at it.
From the motivation standpoint, I have to tell you, and I talked about Hamilton before.
Yeah.
I am completely motivated by Lin-Manuel Miranda, the creator of Hamilton. I don't know how that person creates so much amazing stuff, and so I'm a little bit obsessed with how his process works and how he's been able to, from In the Heights to Hamilton to writing the music for Moana. It's really amazing to me. So it's always funny. I was telling my friends the other day, because I was talking about some of the things I was doing. I'm like, I don't think I'm doing enough, because I was reading this thing about Lin-Manuel Miranda, and I think I'm lazy. Like, I'm not just, this is terrible. And they're looking at me like, Joe, you're an idiot. Like, what is your, but those are the types of things I look at, because I'll see somebody like Miranda, I'm like, oh my God. There's like, I can squeeze another 2 hours out of the day. Like, I can get up at 3 a.m. I don't have to sleep. It's like those types of things that just are crazy. So that's the outside of the friends thing. Whatever Lin-Manuel Miranda is drinking every day, I'll take a little bit of that, because I don't understand how he does it.
Yeah, I feel the same way about so many other people. I am amazed by how people can do this. Well, that's actually leads me to a question I've been wanting to ask you as well. And this is like specifically an advice question for, I think, the people that might be listening is, I think you may have already said it in so many ways, but what's a piece of advice you'd give somebody, like maybe just a simple thing that's chasing a dream, starting their own business, doing something? Like, what's the one thing you'd suggest to somebody to say, really focus on this, or don't, or ignore this, or something?
Well, I mean, I know, you and I were talking before the show, and some of the people that listen are entrepreneurs and trying to grow a business and whatnot with that. The one thing that I would say, and this was what my last book, Content Inc., was about. I really feel when I meet with entrepreneurs a lot. I had a workshop a couple months ago with a group of entrepreneurs, and they're struggling, and they're creating a product, almost like I was telling you before about my journey. They're creating this product or service. They fell in love with it, and they're trying to promote it very traditionally. And I've just found out, and through all these amazing case studies out there, and all these entrepreneurs that are doing amazing things, they're building an audience first, and then they're monetizing that through a product or a service or media or whatever the case is. And I'm just like, wow, it's very simple. It's not that difficult. They're just saying, okay, they're focusing on an audience. They find a different way to tell a story in a content niche. It's one content type, one channel. They consistently deliver that value over time. Generally takes about 12 to 18 months. And so when I talk to entrepreneurs who have been struggling for years, I'm just like, look, I know you're not used to this. Like, nobody's taught you this is the way that you launch a business. But I think absolutely there's not a better way to launch a business than creating becoming the greatest resource of something. Even if, like Kevin Kelly and his 1,000 true fans, just for a small audience. Mm-hmm. Who's that audience? Be the greatest informational provider for them, whether that's 5 people or 500 people. Do that really well around something you're passionate about. And you could probably do that for the rest of your life if you want to, instead of a lot of my friends who have businesses. I mean, they are working 12, 14 hours a day, and God bless them. And nothing against anything that they're doing, but I look at it and I'm like, there's a better way. Mm-hmm. There's an absolute better way to do this. And I wish more people would see that instead of, especially like on social media today, they're like, oh, well, we got to be on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook, and we got to be doing these infographics, and we got to be doing everything. And I was like, no, you don't. Mm-hmm. Did you know that every media company since the dawn of time has started with one content type, one channel they consistently deliver over time, and that's how they've done it, and it's still today, whether it's New York Times or PewDiePie. It's the same model. Mm-hmm. Everybody has the same model. And I just like, that's the simplicity of it. And that's where everybody gets so confused either about starting a business or having an online, being an online influencer in some way. And I'm just like, simplify. Don't make it so difficult. You don't have to do all this stuff.
I love
you just have to be valuable. You just have to be valuable to a few people over something you're passionate about. If we just simplified it like that, I think it would just make everybody's life a lot easier.
I love simplify. It's almost less is more.
That's exactly right. Well, that's my big thing for content marketing too. I'm like, what? You don't have to create like 5 to 10 articles a day. What if you created one amazing piece of content a week? Mm-hmm. Like amazing, but one. What if you took all those hours of wasting everybody's time on those 10 articles that nobody will ever read and create an amazing podcast like you are? Mm-hmm. You know, like it's just thinking about it a little bit differently. And a lot of people are confused right now, and that's kind of what bothers me. And that's why, like I'm out there talking about these things over and over again, and just slow down and just do something you love and you're passionate about that at the same time is valuable to somebody else. And it'll work out. It just takes time to do that. It just takes about 9 months, 12 months to really, really get some traction, but it absolutely works.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. I've seen that even myself. Well, Joe, this has been super great. I think this is, I've even learned a few things as we've been talking to you. I mean, it's just been fun getting to know you as well, but there's some really great nuggets in there. So thanks again for taking so much time today.
Well, thank you for having me. Hopefully somebody listening to this got some value out of it, because I felt like I was talking about myself all the time. But hey,
but that's kind of that's kind of our niche, which is really around. It's not so in your face. It's a little bit about the person. So the last question I always love to ask you is, and I'm sure it's so easy to find you, but what's the best places online to follow along, get to know you, and some of your story?
So my social media channel of choice is Twitter. So I'm at Joe Pulizzi, JoePulizzi on Twitter. So if you shoot me a note on Twitter, I will most likely see it. Everything about me and the books and my email address and everything else is on joepulizzi.com. And then everything for Content Marketing Institute is contentmarketinginstitute.com.
That's wonderful. Perfect. Again, thanks, Joe. It's been such a treat to get to know you a little bit more.
Anytime, my friend. Thanks for the opportunity.
So what did you think? Any new ideas? Are you going to try something new? I'm always left with ideas and feeling great after these conversations. These guests really energize me. If you want to share your thoughts about the guest or how the show sparked a new idea, I'd love to hear it. You can actually call me and leave me a message at 1-707-347-9312. That's 1-707-347-9312. Just include your name in a brief message, and you may even be featured on a future show. If you want to follow along with me and see behind-the-scenes fun and my adventures, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at @MeChristopher. That's MECHRISTOPHER. You can also follow along with Accidental Information on Instagram and Facebook at Accidental Information, and on Twitter at Accidental Info. Also, we publish original articles weekly about following your passions, getting creative, and a lot more, all at accidentalinformation.com. Lastly, if you love the show and you want to spread the goodness around, go tell a friend about it. As in, literally text someone or email it to them. I'd love it. Also, please make sure you're subscribed to receive new episodes automatically each week. Thanks again for joining the conversation. Okay, that's it. We'll talk again next week.